Hey yogis, welcome to my channel. My name is Kassandra and I'm going to take you through an intermediate yoga class. This is a deep hip stretch working on lots of different variations of pigeon pose. So a lot of external hip rotation. This is a great class to do to increase flexibility. I'm not using any props. If you have blocks at home, just have them close by in case you need them. But we're going to start lying down on our backs. And because we are doing a lot of external hip rotation, which is a big part of pigeon pose, we're going to begin with an internal hip rotation. Just really gentle. Let your feet go wider than your knees and let your knees drop in towards one another. And then you can place your arms and your hands wherever feels the most intuitive to you here. Giving yourself a few moments to really ground. Some cleansing breaths in and out through your nose. Just checking in to see how you feel today. What your energy levels are like. And try to send your breath all the way down low into your lower abdomen, rather than only breathing in your chest in a short and shallow way. And now separate your knees a little bit. We're just going to do a little windshield wiper motion. So drop the knees and thighs to one side and then to the other. So our first little opportunity to check in and see how our hips are doing. If one feels a little bit tighter than the other, which is totally normal for, one side of our body to be a little bit more flexible or a little bit stronger than the other. And coming back to neutral, bring your right knee in towards your belly and then open it up a little more towards the sides. Maybe you stay here or you can take your half happy baby pose, holding onto the sole of your foot. Your elbow can stay to the inside of that leg as you press it open a little wider. Try to push your left hip down so everything is still facing up towards the ceiling. Taking a first hip opener here, using minimal arm strength. You're trying to pull that knee and thigh down towards the floor. And we'll take our first variation of pigeon pose, which is reclined pigeon, or called sleeping swan in yin yoga. So you can cross your right ankle over the top of your right knee. Flex your foot and push your knee and thigh away from you as you reach out with your arms to pull your left knee in a little bit closer towards your chest. So we're not curling head and shoulders off the floor. And you should feel this towards the outer right hip, into the glute, maybe a little into the IT band. So this is the easiest version of pigeon pose, and we're kind of just slightly going to increase the intensity of this pose as the class goes on. Give it one last little squeeze and then keep this figure four shape. Just let your left foot come down to the mat. IT band stretch, really great. So let your left thigh come down to the floor until your right foot comes down onto the mat. So I'm trying to get my right knee to point up towards the ceiling. You can even use your left hand to push it. And then right arm can reach out to the side so that both shoulder blades are grounded on the floor. Just getting even deeper, especially on the outer hip. This is not an area that we get to stretch and work on too much. So you might be a little bit tight and even a little bit weak. Just take one more full breath here. And let's release, come all the way back through to center, uncross the legs, maybe straighten them out if that feels good. And we'll go to the other side. So half happy baby first, bring your left knee in, open it up a little wider, and maybe you stay here, or maybe you hold on to the sole of your foot with your hand, pushing that knee and thigh open to the side while drawing and dragging it down towards the floor. And I like to let my right thigh kind of flop open just so I'm not rolling on one hip more than the other. Slow, steady breaths. And you can guide that leg over, reclined pigeon pose. Cross your left ankle over the top of your right knee and really feel your thigh and your knee move away from you. You're gonna feel that stretch already. And then you can reach through and intensify this by pulling your right knee in. Always trying to intend that knee to move away from the floor, as if you were going to touch it towards the ceiling. And I like to flex the left foot here. Keep this figure four shape. Right foot comes down to the floor, IT band stretch. So go ahead and lower your right thigh to the mat until your left foot comes in contact with the floor. And you're trying to point your left knee up towards the ceiling, maybe with the help of your hand. Reach out with your left arm. One more big inhale and big exhale. Let's release, come back through to center, and we're gonna come into our butterfly fold. So you can just rock up, stay seated, bring the soles of your feet together to touch, knees apart. You choose what distance you want here between the heels and your seat, and just fold on in. I'm making this a yin-like passive pose, so I'm not keeping my spine straight. I'm just letting my arms relax and letting gravity do the work for me here. Just about 5 breaths or so. We're not here too long. But using this class to target all areas of the hip joint. See if your head can dangle a little bit more. If your shoulders can soften and release any tension. And let's walk our hands in, rolling back up inch by inch. Now bring your knees in, feet flat to the floor. Our second variation of pigeon pose, a little bit more intense. This is seated pigeon. So with your hands behind you, cross your right ankle over the top of your left knee, and then you control how deep you go in this pose by how close you bring your left leg in. And just rock a little bit side to side. We're not here too long. Try to push your heart forward, lengthening out through your spine. And then uncross your legs so you have both feet flat to the floor, hip width distance apart. Plant your palms down to the mat, reverse tabletop pose as you squeeze into your glutes and push your hips up towards the ceiling. Engage through your quads. And lower down, second side, left ankle crosses on top of the right knee. Maybe you move that right heel in. And a little cradle rocking motion here, side to side. Keep lifting through your chest so you're not rounding or slouching through your spine. And just like before, we're gonna come back into our reverse tabletop pose. Last time here, feet flat, push, squeeze, and lift. Big stretch into your shoulders as well here. And release. Let's make our way tabletop pose on hands and knees. Bring your palms under your shoulders, your knees under your hips, just cat and cow. Inhale, drop your belly, lift your gaze, tailbone up. Exhale, reverse this motion as you round and contract. And a few more here. Lifting and rounding. Try to feel this in your upper back, mid back, low back. Really pushing into fingertips and knuckles, taking the weight out of your wrists. Coming back to neutral, we'll take some big circles with our right hip. So making those circles as if you're tracing it with your knee. Try to push into your left arm so that you're keeping it straight and not bending and leaning over too much on one side. Really just isolate this hip. And then let's step it forward to the top of the mat on the outer edge of your right hand. So palms are on the inside. This is your lizard pose. If you'd like to go deeper, you're going to flex the front foot and roll onto the outer edge of that right leg, or right foot, I should say. So getting deeper through the outer hip, more like what we'd be working on in our pigeon pose from here. Letting gravity pull your hips a little bit closer towards the floor. Open through your chest. And lift your knee and your foot back up so everything is facing forward. Tuck the back toes under, lift your back knee off the mat and bring your foot in a couple inches so that you're on train tracks with your feet about hip width distance apart. Push into your feet, inhale, high lunge. So bending generously into your front knee. You might need to bend a little bit into your back knee as well. No problem with doing that. Keep the floating ribs tucked in, sinking down. And let's tilt forward, reaching your arms back. Palms come down to the floor, three-legged dog. Reach your right leg all the way up towards the sky. Bend your right knee and open up your hip. So you're trying to bring your knee up as high as it can possibly go. Squeezing and lifting. And now let's step our right foot forward in between the hands to the top of the mat. Warrior two, back foot spins parallel to the short edge of your mat. Arms extend out. Just here for a moment here in your warrior two. Go ahead and straighten your front leg. Bring your back foot in a couple inches, triangle pose. So your hips go back. Slide that right hand down towards your shin, left arm up to the sky. Big expansion here between both hands. Reach the crown of your head forward, looking down to the floor. Circle your left hand down, bend into your front knee and take a little vinyasa from here. Inhaling to plank. Exhale to lower. Cobra or upward facing dog. Exhale back, downward facing dog. Stretch it out, reach into your heels. And we'll go find that sequence over on the second side. So bring your knees back down to the floor. Tabletop pose. And this time we'll trace some circles with our left knee. But really we're trying to rotate through our left hip. Push your right elbow straight. Try not to lean all the way over onto the right side body. And we'll step it forward into our lizard pose. So foot to the outside of the hand to begin with. We still want our knee to be stacked on top of that ankle. And you might choose to stay here, or you can curl your left toes up and roll onto the blade of that foot. And I'm just staying up on the palms here, trying to relax so that my hips and pelvis can get a little bit closer down towards the mat, while maintaining an extension and a lot of lift through the spine and through your chest. One more big breath here. And coming back through to center, we're setting ourselves up for our high lunge. So bring that foot in, tuck the back toes under, lift your back knee from off the mat. And once your feet are hip width distance apart, then you can start to slowly lift on up. Arms rise with you here. So trying to get our front thigh roughly parallel to the floor, and you might need to bend into your back knee a little bit to get a deeper stretch into our hip flexors, and also to help keep our hips directly underneath our shoulders. So a big focus of pigeon pose is on the outer hip, but we also need to open up through those hip flexors and through the psoas. Start to tilt forward, reach your arms back, only here for a second, just strengthen. Into your three-legged dog, hands down, left leg rises, bend your left knee, open up your hip. Into our warrior two, step the left foot forward, back heel spins in, push as you lift, sinking down. And this is just our transition for triangle pose. Straighten your front leg, bring your back foot in a little bit, and as you send your hips back, you can move that left arm forward, palm down, right arm up. So roll your right shoulder back, roll your right hip back. Focus on length as opposed to how low you can get to the floor. That truly doesn't matter. And circle the right hand down. We take our flow, inhaling plank, chaturanga, cobra, or maybe upward dog. We all meet downward facing dog. Stretching it out, push into your heels, draw your lower belly in, stretch out through your arms. Okay, we're gonna get into it. Reach your right leg up towards the sky. This time keep it straight and squared, and step up, high lunge. So right foot in between the palms, feet are hip width distance apart. We've been here before. Reach your arms up, and we're gonna add on with a twist here. So open arms, left arm forward, right arm back, palms are facing down towards the floor. So I want your right knee to still be facing towards the top of the mat as you bend generously here. Both hip bones facing forward. Inhale all the way back to center. Bring your hands to your heart, and we're gonna step up and bring our left knee up with us. So up nice and tall, add a twist to the other side this time. Hold on to your left knee and reach your left hand back. Again, the knees and our hips are pointing forward. We're really just rotating through our spine. Stand up a little bit taller. And now into our standing pigeon pose, face forward. You're going to cross your left ankle over the top of your right knee. Start to bend into that right knee and send your hips back as you extend your chest forward. Maybe you work on strength and balance by staying up nice and tall, or you work on deeper flexibility by lowering your fingertips to the floor and folding. So a good 3 or so breaths here. Just a different variation of our pigeon pose. And now if you had folded like what I'm doing here, you'll need to carefully start to lift back up into your chair pose, release, bend into your knees, sink your hips down, and let's take our flow. Exhale, fold, halfway lift, flat back. Plant your palms, make your way through your vinyasa. We meet downward facing dog. Setting ourselves up for the second side, left leg up, straight and squared, high lunge. So only isolating through our spine, open arm twist. This time your right arm moves forward, left arm reaches back. Look wherever helps you maintain your balance and your focus. Try to squeeze your lower belly in. Inhale all the way back to center. Hands at your heart. We're gonna step up, bring that right knee up with you, and we twist to the other side this time. Hold onto your knee. Right arm extends back. Lift up a little taller into your standing pigeon pose. Right ankle crosses over the top of your thigh. Bend into your left knee as you send your hips back and extend your chest forward. Maybe you hang out here, or maybe you choose the option of lowering with your hands down to the floor. You'll feel that a lot deeper into the glute and into your right hip. Notice where you're holding on to tension in your body. And even in your mind, really pay attention to the internal dialogue when you practice, the things you tell yourself. And we'll start to lift back up. Take your time so you don't fall out of it. Into your chair pose. Find your flow. Fold it down. Halfway lift. Vinyasa. We meet in downward facing dog. Ready to go even deeper now into our pigeon pose variations. Let's reach our right leg up to the sky. If you'd like, you can bend your knee and open up your hip here. And we'll find warrior one. We're not here forever. So I want you to have a bit of a wider warrior one. So instead of stepping your foot to the inside of your hand, kind of go where your hand was, and then drop your back heel down to the floor. Bend into that front knee, arms reach up, and we're gonna open up and interlace our fingers behind our lower back. Clasp your hands, lift up through your chest before diving down. Humble warrior. So we're trying to keep our hips low to the floor, strengthening as well as stretching. And now keep this humble warrior shape, but let your hands come down to the floor. See if you can bring your right hand underneath and to wrap around your ankle, maybe holding onto your ankle with both hands. So my shoulder is trying to wiggle underneath my calf, and I'm really trying to bend into my front knee to press the hips down. You're probably gonna feel it burn. I feel it burn. We're not here forever. Just keep breathing into it. If you were holding onto your ankle in this way, release so your hands can come down to the mat. And now let's find the traditional variation of pigeon pose. Right knee behind your right wrist, left leg stretches back out behind you, and really level out your pelvis so you're not leaning on one hip more than the other. And we're gonna fold on down. So this is where if you have a block at home, you might be more comfortable using it under your chest, your forehead, or even your right hip. We'll take a good 5 breaths here in the pose. And start to walk your hands in so that you're lifting up through your heart and up through your chest. And now this is optional. You're either just going to work here, working on pushing your fingers into the floor and finding a back bend in pigeon, or you can move on to your mermaid pose. So mermaid, you're bending into that back knee, and you'll need to reach back, and you're just going to nuzzle your foot into the crease of your elbow, and you might reach back and see if you can interlace and hook your fingers together, trying to face everything forward as much as possible. If you were in mermaid pose, carefully let that go. And now we'll come into double pigeon, or sometimes called square pose. Roll onto your right hip and bring your left leg out in front of you, and you're gonna stack the left shin on top of the right one. Sometimes also called fire log pose. Left ankle is on top of my right knee. Left knee is on top of my right ankle. If I look down, there's a little triangle shape here. So stacking one over the other, maybe this is enough. If you'd like to go further, this is a deep stretch. We're gonna rotate towards our left foot and maybe bring your left elbow to the inside or to the sole of that foot. Make a little fist and prop yourself up so you can twist. Stay with your breath. Remember, these are all options. You can leave out whatever doesn't work today. And coming all the way out, uncross your legs. Take a little windshield wiper motion side to side. And we'll just find that reverse tabletop pose like what we did at the beginning of class. Squeeze and lift. And as you release, find your downward facing dog. So getting ready to do this on the second side. Left leg extends, bend your knee and open up your hip. Take a wider version of Warrior One. This will help with Humble Warrior. Back heel comes down to the floor at about a 45-degree angle, lifting on up. Arms extend. And now as you open up and clasp your hands, interlace them more unusual way so you have your other thumb on top, open through your heart, and then dive forward and down to the inside of your left thigh. So just because the chest is dropping down does not mean I'm straightening my front leg and lifting my hips. I'm trying to stay as low to the floor as I can. And now stay in this shape, simply release your hands down to the floor and see if you can wiggle your shoulder under your calf or under your knee and leg here, whatever's close to you at this point, and then hold onto your ankle with both hands, sinking even further into it. I know it's tough. The more you can push into your back leg and your back foot, the easier it's going to be to stay here. But it's still not easy. And bring your hands down to the floor, pigeon pose, left knee behind your left wrist. Reach your right leg back. And again, just notice, totally normal for one side to be tighter than the other, but try to square off the pelvis here before you fold on down. Relax your shoulders as much as possible. Breathe into the stretch. And we can start walking the hands back. So either working on the back bend version by just pushing your hands into the floor and leaning it back, or transitioning into mermaid pose. So you bend into your back knee and reaching back with your right hand. You're kind of just wiggling your toes as best as possible into the crease of your elbow, and then reaching with your left hand, interlacing through your fingers. Carefully release that mermaid stretch, and we'll come into our double pigeon, fire log, square pose, whatever you're used to calling it. So right leg goes in front, and you're stacking your right shin over the left one. So joints stacked as best as possible. Don't worry if your knees are lifted up like this, it's fine. Over time, you'll be able to find a little bit more range of motion here. And then face over towards your right foot and see if you can bring your elbow to the sole of the foot, one hand over the other as you twist. And coming all the way back through to center, release the legs. Last time here in our reverse tabletop pose, push into your feet, squeeze and lift. And we'll find our last downward facing dog. So we've done a lot of external hip rotation with all of those pigeon poses. So now we'll close this off with some internal rotation. If you'd like, you can take your final vinyasa, plank, chaturanga, upward facing dog. We all meet downward facing dog. And let's bring our knees to the floor. And let's come into deer pose. So deer pose, you're going to bring your left shin forward, parallel to the top of the mat. Right shin parallel to the longer edge of the mat. So 90-degree angles in both legs. Try to push the right hip down as you lean back. So it's not really about the front leg. Doesn't totally matter what your front leg is doing. It's more about the internal rotation that we have through the right leg here and right hip. And if you can always lower all the way down to your back. I'm just staying on my elbows here. There's enough intensity right here. And let's start to lift up. We'll go to the other side. So this time your left shin goes in line with the long edge of your mat. Your knee is pretty much at the same level and height as your hip. And then walk your palms back behind you to whatever degree feels the best. And I find this is one of those poses that feels really different from person to person. So maybe it feels super intense, maybe it doesn't feel like anything. Doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. There's just a lot of variation in this one. And let's walk back up. Lower all the way down onto your back. And we'll just take a little windshield wiper motion with the knees, letting them drop side to side. And you might draw your knees in towards your belly, giving it a big squeeze. Setting ourselves up for Shavasana, our final resting pose. Take up lots of space here, get really comfortable. And just notice the effects of this practice, where you feel it the most. Without judging your experience too much. Letting go of any criticism you might have of yourself. Letting go of any expectations you might have had. Not making this about performance at all. But instead seeing it as a healing practice, as something you can do to care for yourself, to connect with your body, and now to find some stillness. Begin to deepen your breath, waking yourself up by moving a little through your fingers, through your toes, stretching everything out as you reach your hands up overhead. And you can roll to one side, coming up, taking a seat, however is comfortable for you here. Palms joining together at your heart. We'll close our practice with the chant of Om one time. we inhale to chant. Big breath in. Namaste. Thank you so much, yogis, for doing this practice with me. Let me know how it went for you, and please subscribe to my channel. If you want to stay on your mat a little bit longer, I would love for you to follow this up with a meditation. You can click right here to access it. Thank you again. Namaste.